Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
I'm distraught.
I'm mourning for Maylee's.
I'm Tristan. Jeez.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here tonight to discuss Season 2, Episode 4 of House of the Dragon, episode titled The Red Dragon and the Gold. And, the last couple weeks, Frank, you and I have been talking about how we were looking forward to some action. We finally got some action. We got some dragons doing their thing, fighting the good fight or the bad fight, or I don't know. There's a lot to get into. There was a lot more action than I expected, honestly. I'll start with you, Frank. What'd you think about this episode overall?
I was at the 22-minute mark and I yelled out boring at one of the scenes at King's Landing. It was niggas were talking, boring me again. And I was like, I'm pretty much 40 at this point in my life. And like, I have no problem of just walking out of situations now at this point in my life. Like I'm totally fine with it. I'm very hands and feet and nails to the ground who I am as a person. If I'm not entertained for the first 3 or 4 episodes, I'm jettisoning the situation. I do it in my dating life. I do it in every aspect of my life. If I'm bored for an elongated amount of time, I'm out this bitch. And at the 22-minute mark, and one of these random ass council scenes, I was like, bruh, y'all pay all these millions of dollars per episode on dragons and armor and wars and all this shit, and I have seen nothing but random ass dragons flying across oceans and people just staring across tables talking to each other. Y'all got one more episode out of me, it's about to be a 3-man podcast from the rest of this season here on out. And God damn it, and I counted at a 38-minute mark for the first time this season. I went from the back of my chair to the edge of my seat, and I was like, "Nigga, finally, we got some action."
I love the time codes. I appreciate you bringing the time codes.
Bro, I took notes. I took notes every time code, because I was about to write my epitaph out of the season. At this point, I was tired, had a long flight, and I was about to be put to sleep.
Yeah,
but.
Some of the characters had a short flight, I think, in this episode. We'll get to that, though. Yeah.
But this is what I needed, man. Like, for me, what made Game of Thrones so special was that you had a concoction of everything. Cunningness, battles, one-on-one fights, wars. It was a concoction of everything what made the show so great. And this show is good, but it's a lot of chess and no action. And finally, the hard-earned money spent on dragons finally came to fruition for me. And I love the last 20 minutes of the episode. It was daring. There was some L's I didn't expect to happen so early in this season, but I think it was needed to move the needle this season. There's been a lot of stagnantness in this season. So for this episode to happen, for the way it ended, I'm awake now. I'm awake and I'm plugged in for next week for sure.
Glad to keep you on board. Tristan, what are your thoughts on the episode? Or do you have a rebuttal for Frank?
No rebuttal. Different perspective. I love the council meetings. I love every council meeting scene. Because all that stuff builds towards, it makes the battle worth it, in my opinion. Game of Thrones, the first 2 seasons of Game of Thrones are the same way. It's a lot of talking, there's a lot of backroom deals. And I think that's when the show is at its strongest. I think House of Dragon does a good job of kind of bringing it back to the core. We're not dealing with White Walkers, you know what I'm saying? We're not dealing with a lot of, magical shit. It's literally like all the conversations and ideologies that led to battle, and then you have the battles. There's really only 2 ways we can go about this. This is, I was on the edge of my seat literally from the beginning, because the way that Aegon's character, or the characterization of Aegon, the way it got molded by so many different people, right? The council members, his brother, his mother, all these things led him to that ultimate, damn near inevitable, otherworldly, stupid decision that he made. Right? It didn't happen in a vacuum. Aemon, the decision that he made while on top of his dragon, seeing Aegon and Rhaenys, we'll get to it, but like, essentially, I loved it because of those backroom dealings. I loved it because of those council meetings, because they reveal so much of why this conflict is so tragic. Honestly, to the point, the part that I enjoy at least, even though I was on the edge of my seat, the part I enjoy at least were the dragons fighting, because, like, I don't know, maybe like 28, whatever the hell we started watching Game of Thrones, like those battles were like, building up to a battle. I can't wait to the battle. Like, I want to see it. Now I don't really want to see it. It's so tragic. And it says so little about like the human condition that it's like, it's not as entertaining. It's entertaining as hell. It's visually stunning and all that stuff, but it's not as entertaining as the decisions that lead to it. You know what I'm saying? So like, I love this episode. Can't wait to talk about it.
Brittany, what about you? What's your thoughts on the this episode?
I see it both ways. I see where Frank is coming from. I see it where Tristan is coming from. And I tend to want to lean a little bit more in agreement with Tristan, because in the book, it's glossed over so much about like these internal sort of conversations, and you just kind of, quickly get to like the action parts, which are fantastic, especially when you're reading it and you're creating this world in your mind. And then you finally get to see it play out here, on the television show. It's awesome. But I think it's needed to understand the decisions and what took place in order to get to that point. We know that war is going to happen. That's inevitable, right? And for a lot of these, kind of side conversations and things like that, like the whole Kristen Cole thing, having, I guess, plotted is the word I'm looking for with Aemon. That was news to me. I have qualms about Vhagar being present at this particular battle, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. But this episode for me was really a really great episode. One, because we're also seeing stuff that's happening with Daemon that you wouldn't have really understood when reading the book. We got a little bit more Alice Rivers, who we've already mentioned plays an important role in this war that is a Dance of Dragons. So yeah, like this episode for me was really great. Like Tristan, I know that there are going to be battles amongst the dragons. It's inevitable. I had a hard time like watching it, because you don't want to see it happen. You don't want to see like these dragons take down each other, because we really didn't get a whole heck of a lot of that in Game of Thrones. Yes, we had 3 dragons, but to see dragon on dragon fighting was like kind of rough. And then of course, the end of Meleys and Princess Rhaenys, R.I.P. Like Yesenia said here in the chat, crying for 19 minutes. Can we have a moment of silence for these 2 wonderful characters in the House of Dragon? Yeah, and also shout out to those who are in the chat today: Yesenia, M, King B Johnson, Angel Prado. We appreciate y'all being here, and we will definitely be taking your comments and questions here throughout this episode.
Yes, we will. As far as the dragons fighting, I was very interested in how that played out, because you think about fire breathing dragons, you think it's all just going to be fire on fire, but it was a lot of, they were like locking up and like wrestling in midair, and I wasn't expecting that. I thought that was a really cool wrinkle, and it made it obviously more violent than them just almost like fighter jets trying to shoot each other down. They were they're fighting in midair. Frank, what did you think about the way the dragons kind of battled?
I fucking loved it. It's House of Dragons shit. Some fucking dragons getting it in. Like, this is what happens when 2 families are vying for a throne. Sooner or later, these dragons are gonna clash. Like, I thought it was like a Rembrandt on TV. Like, shit was beautiful. Like, I love the fighting. I love the contrast of sizes, and like for a second, I mean, Vhagar is undefeated. If I remember correctly from the books, she's never lost a fight. So like for a second, like it was the way it was drawn up on screen, it looked like is Vega about to take an L. Like I was on the edge of my seat. Like I've read like the history books of this world, and like Vhagar and Belair the Black Drail are two dragons who've never lost. And the way it looked like Rhaenys had the upper hand when it came to experience for a quick second. It was beautiful. I mean, and the thing about the dragon fighting as well is that it is tragic, but the story is tragic. It's meant to be tragic. Like there has to. It's not going to be a tie. It's not going to be a sometime you lose or sometime you win. It's going to be an absolute victor and absolute loser. And what I loved about it is that this is a microcosm of what's going to go on for the next season or two. Is that these two things, these dragons are the last resort. And like, yes, all these backhill dealings, all these council meetings, they're trying to sway of having this happen in war as a last resort. But this is the result of like when plans go awry and you want to win a battle outrightly. It was one of those things where and I know it's costly. I mean, Max is spending millions of dollars on it, but like to see it actually happen on screen, it was like a Picasso Rembrandt painting, man. I knew from the minute Vhagar was in the fight, I knew Meleys was done. Like it's just Vhagar doesn't lose many fights, if at all. But I mean, I loved it. I need more of it, please.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how the infighting in the council chambers kind of led to what we saw in the sky, whereas seems like Aemon took out they took out two dragons and two people, right? I mean, Tristan, I'll go to you with this. I mean, we're kind of led to believe that Aegon's dead, right? And his dragon didn't make it. He didn't look very good at the very end. It looked pretty burned to me.
He's in bad shape.
Yeah,
whether he's dead or not. I guess we'll see in episode 5. But for me, in the dragon battles, the dragons battling and the people on them battling is secondary for me. When I talk about how tragic it is, like fuck the dragons, like there's people, you know what I'm saying, that are pretty much rendered useless. You know, once the dragons start fighting, you know, once these nuclear weapons start coming out, like your guns and your knives, your swords, your whatever, like hell, your gas, when they start gassing people and shit, that shit doesn't matter, right? We got a nuclear weapon, right? And it crystallizes that this entire this story is tragic because we have two families fighting each other, or two parts of the family fighting against each other, but it's all the people that have to die for them, because of 1,000 different reasons: lack of communication, lack of trust, grand old centuries old patriarchy. You know what I'm saying? Like all these different ideals and character flaws led to people who had no intentions of fighting for either one of these causes dying. And then ultimately what you loose upon the world is like, again, this nuclear weapon that you can't put that toothpaste back in the bottle, in the tube, like it's done, right? Like, yeah, like both sides wanted to not have to use the dragons. But when we start considering the stakes, you start looking like, man, what do I have in my closet here? Man, I could use this 22. I got this AK-47. Oh, hey, what if I nuke their entire city? Like, the stakes kind of dictate how far you're willing to go in order to win. And Rhaenyra says it's not just for the throne, it's for like the future. And it's this idea of legacy, which is a Targaryen. I mean, everybody, but like definitely a Targaryen staple. That's why they, marry brother and sister, is for legacy. So yeah, like the tragic part, like it was beautiful seeing the dragons fight. Like that's what we're here for ultimately. Whether it excites you or kind of repulses you, and I'm somewhere in the middle. But like, we shouldn't forget like the people on the ground, like touching a man's like armor and it's not a man, it's ash. You know what I'm saying? That lets you know like, no, this is serious shit. Like that people did not ask for. These people are minding their damn business. You come to our castle like, hey, bend the knee and fight. Okay, who are we fighting? Dragons. Damn. Like it's either that or be put to the sword. So like all of this is tragic. Like the way the world works is tragic. That's what that seeing those dragons fight should tell you.
That's the beauty of this story. And even going back to like Game of Thrones is that it's a feudal society, right? Like you could be at your crib minding your own business, bouncing your grandchild off your fucking knee, and all of a sudden there's a knock on your door and saying, "Hey, kinfolk is beefing with kinfolk across the sea. Put your battle armor on. Let's fight." That's the tragic. That's the tragicness behind what makes Game of Thrones Game of Thrones. It's Shakespearean, right? And that's why for me, like these battles between these houses are so important because, like, whether you're Bracken, Duskendale, Blackwoods, you don't have a fucking choice. Like you're fighting a war that's not even your war. You're vying for a king or a queen that doesn't fucking shine your shoes. Like you're fighting a war that you have to fight it because of fealty. And in this feudalistic society, that's what makes the story so tragic, is that this family infighting is now becoming a nation's war now. It's no different than in war in today's times. You know what I'm saying? Like we bomb Iraq or Iraq bombs Korea. It's not the soldiers that suffer the most. It's the mother and children. It's the kids going to school, getting their school bombed on. It's the mother and sister at home, you know, getting attacked by soldiers, you know, breaking into their homes. That's the Shakespearean part of this story. And that's why for me it's like it's so important to see these battles happen with Duskendale and Rooks, or whatever you want to call it, is that these wars are
Rook's
being
End.
forced. Yeah, these wars are being forced, and it's not even their business. They have no control over it. That's the sad thing about a feudalistic society.
And Brittany, let's talk about Kristen Cole, because he got to see up close and personal. I mean, he literally saw his plan blow up in his face and very likely cost his side the king. Take us through Cole's plan and how do you think it worked out?
Cole's a fucking moron. Okay, let's just, call it what it is. Like he's trying to prove himself. He told Allison in the small council before he left that the gods favor the bold. Do they though, Kristen? Do they? Because to go even further back, Aegon's been trying to prove himself as king, right? Like no one thinks highly of him, right? They think he's weak. His grandsire even said it. He's feckless. He's just an idiot, basically. And so Aegon has the need to prove himself, and he wanted to go out on Sunfire and go with Sir Kristen's armies to end this war, right? But he obviously hasn't been able to do that because people have been telling him, no, you need to stay back. And Kristen has been conspiring with Aemond. Aemond, who is the younger brother to the king, appears he wants to kind of repeat history in the sense of Daemon, right? He is the second son to the late king. Daemon was the second son to, compared to Viserys. And it's just kind of like history repeating itself. I'm not going to elaborate. But Aemond is going to show up at this battle that Kristen is, laying a plan for. There's no real victory in taking Rook's End other than just to drag out Rhaenyra herself from Dragonstone, or a dragon or dragons from Dragonstone. And it kind of, he thinks this is going to go according to plan. We're going to end the war here, what have you. But, the split in the plan was the fact that Aegon, because of Alicent, and I'm going to reference here in the chat, y'all, appreciate those who are, leaving comments. You guys are blowing up the chat right now. My sister Melissa is in the chat, and she basically said it was Alicent that broke Aegon. She literally said he needs to do nothing, and it absolutely broke him. And I couldn't agree more. Hearing that from your parent, who basically says, I have no faith in you, you're useless, is really devastating. So again, Aegon felt the need to prove himself, but that put a wrench in Kristen and Aemond's plan. And Angel did say earlier in the chat, I hear Britt say in the book, has everyone read the book? So Tristan, Frank, myself here on the podcast as part of the Watchers have, but there are others here in the chat who have. And so, we will kind of reference back and forth. The problem I have in Criston Cole's plan was the very fact that Aemon and Vhagar were present when in the book they were not. And I draw a problem with that because it's like, okay, yes, you're going to bring in your biggest dragon to the war and could essentially end the war. But for me, knowing what's going to happen later on, it's going to make it less meaningful, less special, because you're constantly bringing out your big guns instead of it playing out the way that it did in the book. So there's a lot to be said with Criston's plan. Was it ambitious? Was it bold? Of course. Is Aemon perhaps betraying his brother? That was a question I think that was also posed here in the chat. I think by Angel or somebody. I'm sorry if I got, oh yeah, it was Angel, who said, are you guys confused by Aemon's behavior? Is he supporting his brother or not? Opportunist, maybe. And I understand why the showrunners are doing this based on what little we get from the book. However, I think this is also still meant for the viewers to decide, who really is in the right of all of this. And I'm going to leave that and let y'all discuss. Go.
So is Aemon next in line? Is that how it works?
Considering,
now he is, because
considering that Jaehaerys, the twin, is dead, the showrunners did not put in the third child that was Helena and Aegon's, which was another son. I believe, yes, Aemon would be the next in line.
Yeah, I concur on that. Which is why they didn't include the second son, Aegon's second son. I'm on real quick on Criston Cole's plan. I agree that it was ambitious. I do agree with the logic of trying to draw out, Rhaenyra or one of those other dragons. I get it. It was dumb for obvious reasons, but just specifically him failing to understand, not having the foresight to see that going through with this plan without Aegon's approval would trigger his insecurities and push him to do something brash, right? Because naming Criston Cole Hand of the King was brash. Everything Aegon does is brash, and Criston Cole does not see that because he's so bloodthirsty and he has his own long-standing feuds that he's trying to, he can't get over. On the other side, I agree with Brittany, bringing out Vhagar, right now, you're throwing away your strategy in the first quarter. Bro, we got 3 other quarters. Say that for that fourth quarter run. But yeah, it's tragic because even if it was a good decision, there's always in this particular story, every time you think somebody's making a good decision, something happens that throws off everything. Rhaenyra planning to try to sue for peace, that only leads her to be more emboldened to go to war. This, so much of this story tells you that this shit is inevitable. It I see people oh, Alicent, she got it wrong. Oh man, she could have stopped it. No, this train was going one way or another, and everybody's making poor decisions, even when they think they're making good decisions. Alicent, my poor sweet Alicent, who's not poor nor sweet anymore. She on one end, she's his mother, and you expect her to be softer with him. She was expect her to be more supporting, more loving. On the other side, she has this contempt for him that he only continues to prove. So it's she tells him what he needs to hear.
Right.
And if he heeds that, he doesn't get on that dragon. But by telling him the truth, it only pushed him further into the poor decision that he was always dying to make. So this story is everything about it is ironic. This is the most ironic story I've ever read, watched, whatever, engaged in any type of way.
And Alicent, I love her line to Aegon when she says, do what is simply needed of you. Nothing. It's like, damn.
I do want
Thanks,
to
Mom. Thanks. Go for it, Frank.
I do want to push back a little bit on the Vhagar plan. Out of all the dragons that they have that are claimed, Helena has a dragon, but she's not a war battered veteran at all. You have Sunfire. Aegon has no experience in war. Vhagar is the most experienced war battle ready dragon that they have. So even though that's the biggest weapon, the most powerful weapon, I think it's the only weapon that they have that's experienced in battle. All the other dragons are either too young or unclaimed. So I understood the notion of what they did. And then also too, it creates this homage on screen of how unbeatable Vhagar is and how indestructible Vhagar is too. So like going into the final season, when the battle does happen between, I don't want to spoil it, between Vhagar and the blank, I think it'll add more homage to the speeding to the locomotive that's unstoppable.
Yeah, I'm gonna happily disagree with you about that, Frank. But it's okay. It's okay.
So what dragon would you have put there in Vhagar's stead?
Did you need to have Vhagar there? The showrunners are doing this to position Aemon's intentions, right? Because again, this is what the showrunners are doing, I think, a little bit better than what was given in the book. Is we're glossing over some things that the book doesn't really elaborate on, and so the showrunners are taking that opportunity to make it to where the viewers have to decide: is Aemon trying to usurp his brother from the throne because he is more well educated, he's well versed in High Valyria, and he took his studies seriously, to maybe actually be a better king than what his brother would have ever been. And so I think that's what they're trying to do. It's just I don't think always putting your best weapon in every single thing that you do is going to just play out. I mean, yes, we get Meleys, murked, and Princess Rhaenys murked, but for me personally, again, knowing what's going to happen, it's just going to make it less impactful, less special to me when we see what happens happen.
But if Vhagar's not there, more men are dead. Meleys decimates everybody. Like if there's no dragon there in that place, Meleys kills everybody. But
it was supposed to only be between Meleys and Sunfires, just to show just how much of a greenhorn Aegon was, and Sunfire for that matter. And you're really supposed to see how he was going to fail compared to that of Meleys and Rhaenys, who have, been in their own battles and what have you. But there's injury to both sides. I mean, there's death on one, but then there's injury and maybe more, on the other. That's what it really should have, I think, kind of focused on. I feel like with Vhagar and Aemon there, it kind of took something away from it in a way. But the showrunners are trying to position the viewers to decide, okay, the brothers, what's happening between the brothers? Is another usurper going to happen?
Yeah, for sure. But I guess I'm saying if there's no dragon on the green side that's there, and it's just Meleys. Let's say Aegon is not pushed, and Sunfire is not there. It's just Meleys in an open field, and all of a sudden it's Field of Fire Part 2, the Meleys edition. If there's not a dragon there on the black side, on the green side.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. I don't know. There's still that part of me that just wants it to be as close to the book as possible. When you have, especially when you're doing those certain scenes, like just give me what the book, give me what the book gave. Like you didn't give me exactly what happened for a son. Give me this.
After Son for a Son, I threw out the whole notion of like them going by the book. These people are creating their own story, and it's the book is going to be there as a backup, but they're creating their own unique story at this point.
Well, what they are doing right is don't laugh at Aemon. Bad things happen when you laugh at Aemon, and that was the whole, I think, drive for Aemon and Kristen Cole to kind of come up with this plan, and mostly for Aemon to kind of get back at his brother for what he did to him in the brothel. humiliated the F out of him. Like, damn.
Yeah, but I don't think Kristen Cole was in on the part where he was going to kill the king. I don't think he was like, he didn't sign off on that. Right?
Does Eamon have to tell Kristen Cole everything? No, not really.
He is the
I
hand of the
think
king.
so. When Eamon is there, like the original plan was once the dragon on the black side came out, then he was gonna like ambush there. But he saw Sunfire, and he intentionally held Vagar back. He was like, "Oh,
Yes.
wait." I think again, what Brittany's saying is the show wants you as the viewer to draw your own conclusion about, is he seeing an opportunity to take both Rhaenys and Meleys off the board, as well as Aegon, who he, again, like his mother, despises, has very little respect for, and then he just got humiliated by Aegon, which that's his own personal trigger, right? So the plan, honestly, was going well. It wasn't, Aegon wasn't supposed to be there. That threw the whole thing off, and that triggered something in Eamon. And now we, as the viewer, we have to draw our own conclusion. Like, did he, like after the episode, they talked about it. Was it just collateral damage? Like, hey, I got to take care of Meleys, and sorry, King Aegon, you're just in the way. Or did he see that and say, oh, I can take both of them out?
And that was my point with Christian in this plan. If the plan goes accordingly and Sunfire's not there, Rhaenys is dead regardless. I mean, there's no form or fashion or scenario where Meleys makes it out of there alive, because Rhaenys is not going to retreat. I think the minute she pledged herself to Rhaenyra of taking that duty away from Jace, she knew she wasn't coming back. And I think when Christian put that plan together, it was actually a smart plan until Aegon thwarted it. But yeah, I think Rhaenys was dead regardless at this point.
Yeah, I mean, she said it. She was expendable. Jace, who's next in line after Rhaenyra, is not expendable. And while kind of talking on Jace a little bit, I appreciated that thought being driven to the point by Rhaenyra finally sharing to Jace about the Conqueror's dream, a Song of Ice and Fire, and therefore hopefully continuing her legacy. If something should happen to her, then Jace falls to be the next ruler, and then tradition and legacy continues.
And also in the book, Rhaenys is very more battle ready, more battle hungry than she's shown in the show. She's also is level headed and was like, hey, we should work to avoid this. But she in the book also volunteers, even kind of knowing for the most part that it's probably gonna lead to her death. Like, she was ready. She was a G to the end. RP. Eve Best, the GOAT.
Man, it's like, I knew it was going to happen. I still didn't want to see it happen. I think Eve Best was a wonderful addition to this cast, and hearing her delivery on some of the most incredible lines I've ever heard out of the show, she will be missed, like, sorely. And who also is going to miss her sorely is Corlys Velaryon. Poor guy.
Yeah, good transition. Let's talk about Corlys. We have a scene with him and Alan. We met Alan in episode 1, I believe. Episode 1 or 2. I think it was episode 1. And Rhaenys comes up. Well, actually, it starts out it's Rhaenys with Alan, and because she just found out he's the guy that pulled Corlys out of the water, saved him. I'm not a book reader. I don't know anything about the story. I'm flying blind, kind of like Aegon. I'm just not haven't had anything to drink. Yeah. So in this scenario, it seems that Alan, is he a bastard of Corlys's? Is he related to Corlys in some way? I mean, it seems like they're kind of pointing in that direction. I don't know if y'all want to spoil it or if there's a creative way to work around that, but that's what it seems like to me.
I think what the show is doing the last couple of weeks too is availing a lot of the minor players in the game who are going to be major players later on in the series. The term Dragon Seed is a term that's been used in the books and once in the show as well. And I believe Alan is a Valerian. Dragon Seed pretty much means just a bastard of Old Valyria, whether you're a Targaryen, a Valerian, any dragon rider family. And I think Alan and his brother are dragon seeds, and which makes me go back and think about, we kept seeing Laener's dragon, right? The first couple episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I think Alan or his brother becomes the next rider of Sea Smoke. But to be able to ride Sea Smoke, you gotta have the blood of a dragon, and I think Alan is the dragon seed along with his brother. So I think that's gonna play a part moving forward in this series.
That would make sense considering that Team Black is down a dragon, and I think Team Green is also. But I guess we'll find out next week for sure. Tristan, is there anything you want to add about Alan? I mean, it's a very brief scene, just like the first episode was. But like Frank's saying, I think they're showing this character because this character has a future on this show.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of show you like the impetus for him being there, right? Saving Corliss's life, dragging his body. You know, his brother goes on and on about it, saying, "Hey, you should be rewarded in some type of way," right? Rhaenys essentially said the same thing, like, you know, he should be rewarded in some type of way instead of hidden. You know, remarking about his appearance and how beautiful he looks and all that stuff. So, yeah, like the show, they're not going to introduce him essentially in 3 episodes for no reason. He does have a role to play. You know, how successful he is in that, we'll see. But yeah, Alan is going to be, I think he's a candidate for Dragon Seed, right? Again, Team Black is not just down a dragon, they're down a dragon rider. They're down somebody in council, somebody loyal to Rhaenyra. Like, on both sides, like those numbers will start dwindling down, especially when people start dying. You know what I'm saying? So like at this point, it's like just stocking up on as many allies as possible. So he may be one.
So speaking of another ally, I think he's still an ally. Brittany, let's talk about Daemon Targaryen. He's having a tough time at Harrenhal. Why don't you run us through his issues, from visions of a young Rhaenyra again to visions of Daemon as Aemond? Is that what that was supposed to be with the eye patch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's talk about Daemon Targaryen.
Daemon is having to face a lot of his past, quote, mistakes or the sins of his past while at Harrenhal. We've kind of briefly covered in our last pod that Harrenhal was cursed from like day one, from the first stone that was laid down, as Alice Rivers explained. And basically Daemon is either having dreams or he's having some sort of vision type scenarios where he is probably just having a really hard time deciphering what's real and what isn't, right? And the presence of Alice Rivers also being there as a sort of wood witch, if you will, only amplifies his being at Harrenhal that much more difficult. And so what we're seeing with Aemon, sorry, there's so many of them, Jesus Christ, Daemon, that he is having to confront, like I said, sins of his past. He's following, some silver-haired person who ends up being himself, but strikingly similar to Aemon with the eye patch. He goes back into the throne room at King's Landing with the Iron Throne, and he's hearing a voice of someone speaking High Valyrian. And once again, it's young Rhaenyra. Young Rhaenyra, I think for the reason being was because she was so captivated by him and he could kind of mold her however he wanted to at that moment. He can't do that now because she is his queen and his wife, but at that time she was more impressionable then. But she's, challenging him. She's constantly challenging him and he can't take that. So, off with her head, right? I love the fact that we get Millie Alcock back in these last 2 episodes. I miss her so much as Rhaenyra Targaryen. And then finally with encountering Alice Rivers, he's captivated by her. She challenges him. He's uncomfortable around her, and there's just something about that dynamic between the two of them that, once again, this won't be the last that we see of her and her sort of significance to Damon. But yeah, Damon's kind of going through it. And earlier in the chat, Yesenia, I believe, was the one. If I can find it, I'll post it here on the live stream. But how Damon was very weary about just eating food when he arrived at Harrenhal. Now he's accepting like this cup of I don't know what Alice has created to help him, and he just like takes it without thinking. And the next thing you know, he's having a meeting with the lords at the table, and he's like, "Who are you? What do you want? Like, what's happening, Damon? You're usually sharp with your senses, and Harrenhal and Alice Rivers are kind of messing you up, bro."
Yeah, he's like, "You called me, dude. Like, I'm here." Like, what do you mean? What's going on?
Exactly.
Break. Yeah. What's your take on Damon in this episode?
I think he's battling atonement, man. I think a lot of his guilt, like Damon's such a fierce warrior, right? Like he doesn't ever show his hand, and I think it's just like guilt and atonement catching up to him. From even with Rhaenyra, like him failing to recognize that Rhaenyra is more ill-suited to lead, but because he'll never see her as more than that 13-year-old girl or 15-year-old girl he used to look down on. It's something that is a mold that he can never break out of. And seeing his former wife, we haven't really seen Damon deal with guilt like in present day, right? Like when things happen, he kind of just moves on to the next. But that look of like fear and like shock and anguish when he sees Lena. Is Lena, right?
Yeah, his
Lena,
ex-wife.
Yeah, like
late wife.
His late wife. When the servant girl is going around the table and he sees Lena. It was the first time I saw like him dealing with her loss, like visibly on his face.
Yep.
And I think his daughter mentioned it back in season 1 where he just didn't talk about it. He didn't mention it. He didn't recognize it. He didn't address it. And I think all of this now, all this guilt is not conjuring up in this cursed castle, and it's become the perfect storm. And Alice Rivers is making face all of those past failures and past regrets, and making him atone and for those losses.
Yeah, and Melissa took the words right out of my mouth. He's also withdrawn from his own daughters. I mean, look how he left Dragonstone when he encountered Bela, and he just kind of looked at her and went on his merry little way. He has like zero relationship with Rhaena, it seems. Poor girl is just kind of like cast out of the family, it appears. But yeah, and I'm glad you brought up about Lena. That was the one other vision that I could not remember for the life of me. Don't disrespect. Love Lena. Thought she was wonderful. Miss her too. But yeah, Harrenhal is bringing up some feelings, some things. Yes. Tristan, thoughts?
I mean, this is consequences of like this selfish pursuit of what he feels is owed to him. Like literally everybody has been like a chess piece for him to use to move. Even his own wives. Every wife, has been used. Like his first wife that he may or may not have killed was used as a chess piece to get him closer to Rhaenyra, which was a chess piece to get him closer to the throne. All of it. Rhaena, whatever her name is, Rhaena. She was basically used in a way to make Rhaenyra jealous. So like everything's been used for his own purpose, and it's made him cold towards everyone as a result. Especially Rhaenyra. So yeah, like what we're witnessing in a lot of ways is, I won't say it's the downfall of Damon yet. I will say It's the downfall of like this version of Damon that everybody thinks is so cool. You know what I'm saying? Like we've all, as viewers, as book readers, whatever, we built Damon Targaryen up to be like this heroic, like kind of gangster character. But if you really kind of peel back the layers of who Damon is and what he represents, it should be everything that we find not cool. But like now he has to like face these things head on. And especially in a place like Harrenhal, which is inherently cursed from the jump. And I do appreciate the show kind of providing a little of that backstory through Alice of why Harrenhal is so cursed and why Damon is a little bit more afflicted with that curse than most other people because of the bed that he's sleeping in. But it's a downfall of Damon as just the Damon that we've known him from the first season and up to this point. And you'll see like the rest of his decisions, and yeah, like he's rash because he's Damon, but like he also won't be operating in the same. I don't think he'll be operating in the same MO that he was before, right? So like in some ways, you're right, it's an improvement for Damon, but it's also like again, it's his downfall of like this like really cold, but also kind of cool figure. Like that part of him is over. Like it's so much guilt on his brain that he can really. I don't know if he would have been able to like survive that had he not been in Harrenhal, but being in Harrenhal just like accelerated it times 5. So yeah, like the Damon that we know that y'all know and love, that shit is dead. It's over.
The morally gray Damon that we all come to know as Daddy Damon is gone. Damn it.
I do find it interesting, and maybe it's just by design of who Damon is as a person, or maybe designed by the show. We've seen all these ghosts of the past. One of the few people we have not seen is his first wife, Rhea Royce. I don't think he feels guilty at all about her death, like not even a little bit. Like it's interesting how they haven't shown her at all. I mean,
they showed her in season 1.
It was accidental though, right?
No. I'm talking about in Harrenhal, like as far as the
I see what you're saying.
Guilt. Like I don't think he feels guilty about her at all. Like all that well intent, at least for the show canon, of her needing to die, or of him wanting her to die. I think that was like not guilt at all. That he really wanted that to happen. He cared nothing for her as he does in his own way with Lena and Rhaenyra.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I wonder
Damon's
if
about
Viserys will pop up any of his like dreams or nightmares. I wonder if he feels like guilt towards Viserys in some type of way.
Maybe not. No, I think if anything, he truly loved his brother. Yes, they had their differences. Yes, like us all, with siblings, we have our ups and downs, what have you. I think above all, Damon truly did love his brother, and I think he was just constantly hurt by Viserys because he never asked him to be his hand and never really, took him serious and never really cared about his life, I guess you could say. But I think he for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, truly cared about Viserys, especially, during his illness. He could have, I think at any one point, he could have usurped the throne from him if he wanted to, but he didn't, right? I don't think Damon has really any guilt that I could try to lay out towards Viserys. And I don't think we'll see him in Harrenhal. I kind of anticipated that the figure that he was following may have been Viserys. So I'm like, no, he's moving too swiftly and the hair is not right. And I was like, no, it can't be Viserys. It has to be like Aemon or something. So
yeah, I think the show has made a really smart move with putting Damon on this like side quest. You're taking a major character kind of off the board of the battlefield, but it is interesting to have him on this like journey in this house of horrors. And I did like we've mentioned about how Millie Alcock came back and she's playing the young Rhaenyra in these scenes. And I just want to point out that she's been cast as Supergirl. So she's going to be in James Gunn's Superman that comes out next summer. She's going to have her own movie in a couple of years. So if you're looking forward to more Millie Alcock, she'll be playing Supergirl. And we'll definitely be talking about that stuff when that stuff rolls around. So as we go from young Rhaenyra, let's talk about present day, or I guess we could say older Alicent. Frank, let's get into Alicent's storyline in this episode. She opens it with getting the moon tea from the Grand Maester. I guess Kristen Cole put a biscuit in the basket, I guess is what we're kind of led to believe. And of course, she gives great advice to Aegon. And she's also asking anybody who who knows anything about Viserys and what he possibly meant by Aegon being the chosen one. Frank, take that however you want to go with it. What'd you think about Alicent in this episode?
I think this episode, a lot of it, the overcast and theme of it was guilt. I mean, from Daemon to Alicent to even Aegon in a small measure. I think with Alicent, she's now forced for the first time in her life to like face the fact that, fuck, maybe I was wrong. Maybe, the woman I once called my former friend, my former sister, like put her life on the line to sneaking back into this kingdom to let me know that, bitch, you misinterpreted what my daddy said. And I think now she's trying to find ways to, like, I guess, find more confirmation. I think she knows she fucked up, but I think she's just trying to find more confirmation to adhere to those doubts. And even going back to Aegon, it just speaks to Aegon's like irresponsibility and like not fit to be king, like taking out the history books. Like, to me, that was more so of like, that was symbolism of like Aegon just not knowing what he's doing, and Aegon just turned his nose to his own Targaryen history. And I think the show did a great job of like having Alicent go back and try to find that history, to not be a Targaryen herself, to even like to lean into those books, try to find confirmation about Aegon's dream. I thought showed a lot of growth with Alicent. Say what you will about Alicent, every move she's made has been with intent for the greater good. Whether it's by inexperience or not, she's meant to move in a way to like preserve the kingdom and preserve the future of this realm. I will say that about her. And this episode made me like her a little bit more in regards to like knowing like, let me dig deeper into this, if not for myself, for Viserys' memory. And then for the advice that she gave Aegon, yeah, it was harsh, but it's true. You don't know anything about being a king. Like, in the history of this show and the history of these books, all the great kings, they lean on their counsel. I think Tywin said to Tommen in season 4, like, a wise king knows what he knows, and when he doesn't, he relies on his counsel. That line reigns. It transcends reigns. It transcends errors, stories within the Song of Ice and Fire. And I think that line transcends even more in this episode with the lack of experience that Aegon has.
That's funny.
Yeah. I don't think Alicent ever moved with good intentions. I think she did a lot of it out of spite towards Rhaenyra, because Rhaenyra flat out lied to her on the memory of my mother. So, yeah. Go ahead, Tristan.
I was going to say, this is ironic because this episode made me like Alicent just a little bit less. Yeah. Again, the bell, I will continue to shoot Alicent, and I will scream this from the rooftops, is that whether she got it wrong, whether she got it right, it really doesn't fucking matter. Right? War was coming one way or the other. If she adhered to Viserys's, many pleas to have Rhaenyra be the heir, cool. Another council is called, and somebody contests Rhaenyra's claim, and we have conflict in some type of way. It was going to happen regardless. But like a couple people in the chat said it, like this perception or this persona of her is like this careful person in general. like that's gone. Like I don't know if it's just the stress of the many tragedies that have befallen that family. Oh, in the course of 3 weeks, essentially. I don't know if it's the tension of like going to war, like, but something like she's kind of losing it in different ways. Like one, not being careful with Kristen Cole. Everybody knows it, like even though nobody would say it, everybody knows it because neither one of them have been careful. Not being careful with Kristen Cole because she got her ass knocked up, in one of the many trysts that they were having on the side. Not being able to hide this evidence, especially before Lara Strong comes in, like not being careful enough to understand who her son was and why you can't be that honest with him in that moment because he's already teetering. And like you being the person that he needs validation the most from, he's like, the funny thing with him and Eamon found another tit to suck from, like, but Aegon has been begging for that to be his mother. Like he's literally begging without saying it because he's too prideful. It's like, hey, I need you. I need, to be able to lean on you. And he can't because she just does not fuck with him in any shape, form, or fashion. He is Homelander. So like Allison, okay, of course, still love Allison. Like, let's not get that twisted. But like, I'm honest about all my heroes. And Allison, like she is declining as far as like mental space, as far as like she is able to see the bigger picture, but I think the trade-off in being able to see the bigger picture is that you lose a little bit of a piece of yourself, like things that kind of held you together before this battle and this war began. So yeah, I love Allison, but like she's like that little girl who clung to religion, who clung to like the teachings of her mother, who listened to her father under all circumstances, rarely pushed back. Like that woman is gone. That woman has been through many childbirths. She's been through loss of a husband, loss of a grandchild. Like she's seen her son be a little monster. Side note, real quick, brief note.
Which son being a monster? I need clarification.
Aegon's the monster. Aemon is he's something else. I wouldn't count him as a monster yet, but like Aegon is a monster. I've been seeing people just so disrespectfully compare Aegon's monster to like that of like Joffrey and Ramsay Bolton. And I just want to say that is highly disrespectful. Aegon is a regular monster. Like he's a shithead, but he's a regular. He's a average shithead. Like he would get a 75 in a grade book for being a shithead. Joffrey and Ramsay were like A+ material. Like they redefined what it meant to be a monster. Let's never compare those three again, okay? Aegon is just your regular run-of-the-mill shithead, asshole, jerk, monster, petulant ass, early 20s guy. Ramsay, Joffrey, state-of-the-art monsters.
True, but to Joffrey and, well, maybe not Ramsay's credit because Ramsay did R-word Sansa. They at least never birthed bastard children like Aegon did and repeatedly just did terrible things like that. But yes, you're right. Joffrey and Ramsay were just flat out cruel, flat out just on a whole other level. But Aegon, again, monster.
Aegon father and all these bastards doesn't even make him special. Like, well, he doesn't, like, come on, man. Been there, done that. Like so many kings have been there and done that. But just ultimately, Allison, like you can clearly see like the way that she's built herself up to be, the way the show has built her up to be, like that's on a steady decline, and like more tragedies are coming. So like either she's gonna rise to the occasion or she's gonna continue to kind of slip past. And like that side, the green side with no Otto Hightower, like they need an offensive coordinator. Like they need somebody to go in and call the shots. They need somebody with a level head who could also see the bigger picture. So she it's imperative that she stay sharp, and she's been completely less than that.
Well, to quote and move, sorry, Frank, may she continue to suffer. F that girl. Nah, I'm. Nah, go ahead, Frank.
The bigger picture that she's saying is what I think I'm more calling to is, she's losing a bit of herself episode by episode, being able to recognize that is she, as far as the eye of the beholder, she's a distant second to Otto, but nobody else is close to her on that side. They don't have a Rhaenys on that side. it's really Otto, and then I guess you want to put the collection of the council, but even with the council, they're starting to show the inexperience as well with that Otto too. So, and then too, I think Alicent knows Aegon ain't shit. Like, Aegon R-word some women in season 1. Like, she knows her son's a monster. She knows it. I think this episode, her pretty much calling Aegon out, was just years of just frustrations of clean up this motherfucker's a mess.
I don't know. I to go kind of put a pin on Alicent for me is I can't help but think back to Helena's kind of prophecy after Lena has died. They're at the funeral in Driftmark, and Helena's being Helena, and she said, "Hand turns loom, spool of green, spool of black, dragons of flesh, weaving dragons of thread." And it's like Alicent has a part to play in this too. It's not a whole, solely Otto. It's not solely any really one person. It's a multitude of people. It's multiple threads, right, being woven into the story that we're being given. But yeah, Alicent gets no sympathy from me whatsoever. Yes, I know her father pimped her out, as a young girl to the king and what have you, and she agreed to it because, one, that's her father. This is what was asked of her. She didn't need to necessarily be as spiteful towards Rhaenyra as she was, and I think a lot of the motivation is solely based on that. That's just my opinion, and I'm done.
Patriarchy. Oh, sorry.
Well, yes, patriarchy at its finest. Yes, let's go with that.
You're talking about Alicent. She did lose a lot. Obviously, lost a little bit of herself in this episode. Likely lost her son, who was the king, who she didn't really care about. But the guy she didn't lose is her brother. No one's talking about my guy Gawain, who I predicted was going to die for sure this week. He survived somehow. Had one of the funnier lines of the episode when Kristen Cole's like, no, we're going to ride to Rook's Rest right now, like in the middle of the day, open field. And the brother's like, they're like, there's dragons like just across the bay. He's like, have you grown tired of living? But that's a good line. There's not a lot of comedy in House of the Dragon, but that was pretty good. But Gawain lives to see another episode. I would have bet a significant amount of money that he was going to die in this episode, but proven wrong. So any Gawain thoughts before we get out of here, Frank?
My favorite line of Gawain in this episode was when Christian Cole pretty much questioned his bravery. He's like, no, worse. I have
I'm rational.
Yeah, I'm rational. Like what the, like what are we doing, bro? Like we're on foot. We're in a fucking open field. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? Like that shit. I howled laughing when I heard that.
I agree, and I was like, oh, I feel seen. I feel seen because, like, there are people who are like optimists, there are people who are pessimists, and then people who are realists. I'm a realist pessimist, but like, if anything, I'm a realist, and like, this is just facts, okay? And Gawain, you're right, Justin, it is fun to say his name, Gawain. Gawain was just like, worse. I'm rational. Like, what the fuck are you doing, you dumbass? And look where it got them. Kristen Cole, take the L and shut up about it. Freddie Fox is the actor who plays I want to say Sir Gawain the Green Knight, but that's not the correct title. Sir Gawain Hightower. He's fantastic. I love that he's the little bit of comedic relief in this show because, yeah, you don't get a whole heck of a lot of that in Game of Thrones, let alone House of the Dragon. So yeah, Freddie Fox, great addition to the series.
Yeah, if I put a pin on that, Gawain is me, I'd have said the same thing. Like, bro, logically, this makes no sense. It's not even about fear. It's just like, what the fuck? Like, like, I'll ride for some shit that I believe in, that you can explain to me. If you can't explain it to me without like being cryptic, then we need to turn course.
Yeah.
And one thing I we haven't really touched a whole heck of a lot on, in the sense of, yes, we've talked about Rhaenys and her death and Meleys. According to the book Fire and Blood, today is Rhaenys's birthday. So for the showrunners to kill her off on her birthday, it's a fucking tragedy. Truly. Fuck you guys.
Okay. Frank, as we're kind of wrapping it up here, is there anything we didn't talk about you want to touch on?
Well, now my favorite character is gone, and Rhaenys. Another character who is rising up the character ranks for me is Baela. Baela is showing her grit. She's showing her fierceness in these meetings. She's not intimidated. I love how they're building Baela up this season, and I can't wait to see more of her. She held her own in that council meeting, man. She held her own, and shout out to Rhaenys, like letting them know, like, if it wasn't for Baela, y'all wouldn't even know Cole had a host coming towards y'all. So yeah, I love what I'm seeing from Baela so far in this season.
And on that, oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna go ahead, Brittany. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, on that note, the co-partner to Baela's fierceness in that council was also Jace. Jace was also holding his own in his mother's absence. And can I just point out the similar posture, the similar gestures that Jace has, that's very much in Daemon's light, how he rests his hands on the hilt of his sword, and just kind of the mannerisms are very, very, very similar to me, at least. And I think Jace kind of trying to embody unintentionally that of Daemon, while Rhaenyra is absent, or even with Rhaenyra, he kind of comes at her and is like, I'm trying to do all of this for you, and you're just like not letting me do it. Jason Baela, what a power couple. I think they did great in the small council.
Long live Jason Baela. The last thing for me on this episode is it's always important to remember that, and Brittany kind of touched on it earlier, but like, this story is based on like two sets of gossip, right? So we talk about like the backroom dealings and the conversations, the small council things, like those like types of dialogue are so important, because it allows the show to, again, flesh out a lot of the characterizations, flesh out a lot of the events that, don't show up, or at least are not confirmed in the pages. Like the secret plot between, Kristen Cole and Aemon, like those things, like the hallucinations essentially that Daemon is having, like these, we don't get to see that because you wouldn't get that in the book, because you would need a certain perspective. You need somebody who's there firsthand, at least secondhand. And I love, it's built for TV. Like House of Dragon is a television show, so I love the specific little ways that they're weaving in like these television elements into this literary piece. Like that's what's been like really fascinating to me. So halfway through, super excited to see what the rest of this this season looks like.
That's a really good point. I forgot that they're only doing 8 episodes. So we are at the halfway point of the season, which makes, having the dragons fight in tonight's episode, really, that makes sense why they didn't push it off another week. Usually you want to have a big opening episode, a big middle of the season, and then of course the finale. Of course, well, in Game of Thrones, usually the penultimate episode of the season was usually the big episode. But yeah, this is a good one. This is a fun one. The chat's been great all night long. Brittany, you want to talk up the chat a little bit before we get out of here, and just tell people, plug all our social media handles and all the stuff we always talk about.
Of course. Yeah. And I mean, this is what makes doing what we do so much more fun, is that we have that opportunity to live stream and like live chat with people who just watched the episode like the rest of us. So make sure, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that notification bell, that way you know when we go live next Sunday to talk about House of the Dragon. It's going to get crazy, y'all. So be sure you are tuning in with us then, and for every other Sunday, not every other, but every Sunday afterwards as well. Shout out to Amber of All of Amber's Wands, King B. Johnson, Geeking Out with Melly Mel, M. Moose, my sister Melissa, Angel. I think there were maybe a couple of other people that I may have missed, and I apologize for that. But thank you all so much for taking the time out of your Sunday evening to be here to talk with us about House of the Dragon. And also don't forget to follow us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, all at Watcher's Basement. And also, if you're not into video podcasts, sorry, my brain just went, like loading. We also have audio podcasts available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That way you can check out the replay later. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating.
Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate it. So we hope to do a couple of more episodes this week. But as some people in the chat have pointed out, we do have a hurricane that is coming overnight. So hopefully we're all safe and hopefully we all have power, because tomorrow we would like to do boys episode. What is it? Episode 5 or episode 6 now? Episode 6. Yeah. Episode 6. Talk about that on Monday. And then Tuesday, we're going to talk about The Bear season 3. So really looking forward to that one. Hopefully we all have power. Electricity is an important thing in doing this podcasting deal. So really excited about this week. Hopefully the hurricane doesn't get in the way. And once again, we appreciate everybody who is sending us, be safe messages and everything like that. So that about does it for our post-game report from House of the Dragon. We'll look forward to being back next week. So for Brittany and for Frank and Tristan, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Let it rip, Bear.
There you go.